Are you looking for affordable office space in Marion? The Professional Building, located at 685 Delaware Avenue, is the place for you. For more information, call 740-383-6803. Office space is now available. Again, telephone number 740-383-6803. This is Scott Spears, and I'd like to welcome you to another episode of Scott Spears Now. Today we profile one great actor. You probably know him best as Roscoe P. Coltrane from the 80s hit television series The Dukes of Hazzard. But he's an actor with a great career, friends with Jimmy Stewart, Jerry Lewis, so many others, Audie Murphy, that can be profiled in a great book, The Best in Hollywood. The Good, the Bad, and the Beautiful. He is James Best. James and I recently had a conversation via Skype from his home in North Carolina, caught up with this actor who is so versatile, so real, so honest, and so funny. You can't help but like this man, and Roscoe even shows up in the interview. So you're bound to enjoy that. Sit back with the family and friends and enjoy this profile of a great man, James Best. This is Scott Spears, and today we're joined by an actor I like a whole lot. Best known for his portrayal of Roscoe P. Coltrane on The Dukes of Hazzard, James Best. But he has done so much more, of which we will discuss today. One of the things he's done is written a book which you have to get. Truly, it's a great read. The title is The Best in Hollywood, The Good, the Bad, and the Beautiful. I love that title. And you can get an autographed copy of that, I just found out, by going to jamesbest.com. Very simple to spell. Our guest today via Skype from North Carolina, I'm very proud to say, is James Best. James, how are you? You're looking great.
Very good, thank you.
James, I want to
We kept missing each other.
We did. You know, with this technology, it's a great thing to use for interviews so we can see you, but to hit it on the head is tough sometimes.
Well, I don't know about being better seeing me, you know. A lot of kids come up and they'll say, you know, you don't look like Roscoe. And I said, how old are you? And they'll say, well, I'm 15. I said, well, you're going to change a lot in 30 years too.
Well, you know what? I have to disagree to some degree here, Mr. Best. People can find your age now on Wikipedia, but you don't look it at all.
Well, I take anti-gland juices.
Oh, really?
I can't help it. My wife, I drive her crazy because everything's a joke to me.
Well, maybe that's the secret.
Well, you know, that keeps you young. You know, I'll be 87 in July, and I said, you know, I'm still laughing, you know.
Well, you definitely don't look it. What is the secret? Seriously, 87 years old, you look great.
Well, you know something? I don't know if there's, I don't think it's anything. I think it's probably, well, I can't say genetic because my mother died at 39.
Wow.
And I was adopted. I was born in Kentucky, and I was adopted when I was 4 and raised in southern Indiana. But so I don't really know. And I found, well, the Everly brothers are my first cousins, and you know they're up in the years too, probably. Not as many as mine, but not many people are.
Well, you know, that's something. It's something very interesting, Mr. Best, is that I was reading your book to find out that you were adopted. What's it like to be adopted for those of us who weren't?
Well, you know, Scott, way back in those days when I was raised in Indiana, to be adopted was really a stigma. Because people would come up and say, "Well, you know, it's not your real mom and dad." And my answer was, "Yeah, but they picked me. You were an accident." So, but you know, of course, it's changed now. Back in those days, when my mother was working as a sort of a helping a nurse go over to the orphans' home on charity work, and I was 4 years old. I walked up to the fence when she was leaving and said, "Take me home with you," and she did. In those days, there wasn't all the red tape and everything. In those days, you could take and adopt a child and keep them for a year. And if you didn't like them, you take them back. And a lot of people did that. People on the farms and everything that wanted children to help with the chores, and they'd adopt them for a period of time and then take them back, just like slaves. Of course, they don't do that now, unfortunately. The only thing that I'm upset about is the fact that, well, that people go overseas and everything else and go through all that rigmarole to adopt a child, and there's so many wonderful little children, that really here in this country that could sure use a mom and dad,
Absolutely. It's interesting, James, when they become your adopted mother and father, is that mom and dad?
Yep. In fact, when I was adopted, and I named myself, and I found out later I had a brother. I had 8 brothers, and my mama died early, and my dad was a coal miner, and so he couldn't afford to raise us. And so I found out later that I had a brother named Jimmy, and I'm not too sure. My wife Dorothy said, "Well, possibly you remembered that name, and that's why you gave yourself that name."
That could have been. Could have been something in the memory there.
Yeah, really was.
James, why did you go into acting? I know we're skipping a lot here, but how did you end up with that career?
Actually, I got into acting because I was getting tired of being shot at. I was in World War II. At the end of the war, I trained to be a radio operator, mechanic, gunner for B-17s. And then at the end of the war, they didn't need anybody because the German Air Force was destroyed. And so I went into the military police. And so we went to Wiesbaden, Germany, first to Freiburg first, and then to Wiesbaden, Germany, which was a very tough town. And Hitler, they had trained these young people from their infancy to be soldiers in the future. And they were called werewolf gangs. We called them werewolf gangs. And after the war, these kids that are 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 years old were trained like regular soldiers. In fact, they fought the Russians when the Russians went into Berlin. Those werewolf gangs would get on bicycles with bazookas and fight the Germans. That's how tough they were. Mm. And so when we, of course, occupied Wiesbaden, it was a tough town. And a lot of these werewolf kids were dealing on the black market and everything. And they didn't mind being, they'd been shot at before, and they weren't afraid to shoot back. And so it really was, it was really not my cup of tea. I didn't really care to shoot at anybody, and I didn't really care to be shot at. And I was walking up I was off duty, and I was going up to this building to get some donuts, and a girl was walking down the step, and she had a green uniform on, and with the American flag on one shoulder and a patch on the other shoulder with the initials CAT. And I said, "Come in here, bitte. Come here, please." And she said, "What?" And I said, "Wait a minute. Are you an American?" And she said, "Yes." Well, I kissed her right in the mouth. And she said, "You crazy SOB?" She said, "I'll call the police." I said, "I am the police. How can I help you?" And so I said, "What is a CAT?" She said, "Civilian Actress Technician." I said, "What in the world is an actress technician?" She said, "Well, we travel all over the American, British, and French zones now that the war's over, entertaining the troops with plays." And I said, "Well," that's a good job, and certainly better than what I was doing. So I said, "Well, listen. What are you doing here?" And she said, "We're doing a play at the Wiesbaden Opera House." And I said, "Well, listen, why don't I meet you after the show, and we'll go out and we'll go to a Rathskeller, or we'll go to a pub and get acquainted, and take it from there." And she said, well, come see the show and then we'll talk about it. I said, I don't want to see no show. I was a country boy. I had not seen a play in my life. And only play I ever saw was one in our high school, a senior class play, and I had 2 lines. So I said, I don't want to see the play. I said, I'll pick you up afterwards. She said, I'm not going to go out with you if you don't come see the play. I looked at her, I said, ooh, good-looking girl, American girl. I said, yeah, I'll come see the play. Well, I go in there, and I sit down, and I wait. I said, oh, my gosh, I'll be glad when this is over. The curtain goes up, and I'm like a child who sees Disneyland for the first time. I was absolutely mesmerized. And afterwards, I go backstage to pick her up to go out and have a date, and I see these GIs changing clothes that were in the play. And I said, wait a minute, I'm a sergeant. I see some of these guys that are private and corporals that were in this play. I said, did they travel with you pretty girls? She said, yeah, we're treated like officers. We stay at the finest places. We have the finest foods. And I said, that's not right. I'm getting shot at every night, and these guys are walking around with these pretty girls and being treated like officers. And I said, I'm in the wrong outfit. So I went over. I went to my commanding officer, and I said, I want to transfer you to the Special Service. And he said, oh, God. He said, you don't want to do that. I said, yes, I do. I really do. And I said, I really am not cut out for military police. I'd been in a couple of skirmishes and got my throat cut, and I said, I almost ate the weenie then. It almost killed me. And I said, no. I said, I really would like to see about that. And so I was interviewed, and the woman passed me, and they transferred my orders down to Osmanhausen on the Rhine River, beautiful little resort castle rather. And here around the pool was these pretty girls, and a lot of the guys really didn't care about the girls too much, and that's all right, that left more for me. and I said, oh man, I said, this is great. I start touring with them, and they like to have me around because I had been in the military police, and I carried a weapon at all times. And so I toured, and then I signed on for another period of time because I wanted to continue that. And Arthur Penn, who later became a very big Broadway director, and later he said, well, when you get out of service, why don't you go to New York and train and become an actor? He said, you've got good instincts. And I said, I think I'll do that. And that's exactly what I did do. I hitchhiked to New York, and was very fortunate to get into summer stock and winter stock, and then I was fortunate enough to be put under contract to Universal. I was spotted in a play and put under contract with Universal when they had a contract list. We had Tony Curtis and Shelley Winters and Abbott and Costello and Rock Hudson, Jeff Chandler, and such a wonderful group. But later on, Dick Long and Audie Murphy. I did 5 movies with Audie. And then when I got kicked out of Universal for dating the wrong contract girl, and you can see a pattern there. I got in
a little pattern develops.
The girls got me a big boy.
I said a little pattern is developing in the story here.
Anyway, so I started, and after they said, well, we're going to keep you on at the same salary. I was making $150 a week. I said, I got 3 first features unreleased, with co-star billing, and I was getting fan mail almost as much as Tony Curtis, and I said, are you kidding? I said, I don't want to raise, really. They said, no, you will either stay on the same salary or you're leaving. I said, I can't repeat what I said to the guy. And then the only person, they blackballed me for about a year in Hollywood. Only person who would hire me was Gene Autry, but that's okay. He had 5 series going, Annie Oakley and Ray Ryder and all those things. So I went and worked with Gene Autry and Hopalong Cassidy and Roy Rogers and all those wonderful people, and was getting training. Not only was I training, you know, with horseback and everything, because there was a lot of westerns being shot in those days, and now that I look back, if you'll see my resume, I've done over 200 westerns, Bonanzas, Rawhides, Gunsmokes, oh gosh, you name them, I did them.
Well, you know, James, it's very interesting because I'm reading the book and I think television is such a visual medium, and Dukes of Hazzard was such a cult fan ratings hit that people don't realize that you have and have had this wonderful career. I mean, Jimmy Stewart, Andy Griffith, Carroll O'Connor, you did it in Heat of the Night with him. So many wonderful roles you've had. It's interesting. Is that why you wrote the book to some degree, to say, hey, you know, I had a great career here?
Well, Scott, I wrote it because my grandchildren said, and my children said, Dad, you know, we really don't know who you are because you're an actor. You know, you're always acting, doing different things. And I said, well, you know, I'm not Roscoe P. Coltrane. I mean, I was a character I did. And I played him like a 12-year-old who liked Hot Pursuit. And that's what I told the directors and producers that I was going to do. I did not want to play a mean sheriff. And so that's what I did. And the audiences around the world fell in love with Roscoe because he was a bumbling kid and doing what a lot of people would like to do, and that's get in a car and go very fast and chase somebody. So anyway, but my children said, well, why don't you write, Dad? You've done you've got 600 television shows and 87 feature pictures. Why don't you write your life in this, you know, the service and what you did before, how growing up? And it took me 3 years to put that book together, you know, because I'm not a book writer. I write screenplays and I've written plays, but I've never. So I put together. My wife got a bunch of stills from my life and put them in the book, and I think there's 100 some odd photographs in there. But I was so fortunate to work with Jimmy Stewart. He was my icon, of course. I did 5 movies with him, and of course working with Audie Murphy, because he was World War II, the most decorated soldier that in the history of the United States, I think. And I was very proud to call him a friend. And I worked with Bogart and John Lass and Susan Hayward, you know, Clint Eastwood, Burt Reynolds, you know. I got to work with all of them, and I was so blessed, you know. I thank God every day for being a small part in an industry that brings a little entertainment to the world. It was very, very, very fortunate. My wife and I, we travel, we go to Europe and everything on different tours. I mean, different excursions and stuff, and it was really nice to go to Rome and Paris and all that. And the kids come up and say, "Oh," they go, you know, and of course, they couldn't understand why I didn't speak their language. I had to explain to them through an interpreter that that's exactly what would happen, and they dubbed my voice. I've seen some of the stuff that came out of France and Germany with them speaking like Roscoe. It's hysterical. It's funnier than I ever was.
Well, you know, and I do want to mention this again to the audience. The book is The Best in Hollywood, The Good, the Bad, and the Beautiful. You can get that at jamesbest.com. And again, there are great stories. Jimmy Stewart, Audie Murphy, Andy Griffith. Wonderful, wonderful book. And 3 Twilight Zones, James, which is very interesting.
Well, you know, I met some wonderful people. I taught camera technique for about 35 years in Hollywood. In one class, I had Gary Busey, Lindsay Wagner, Terry Garr, Don Wells from Gilligan's Island, Roger Miller, Glenn Campbell and his wife, and Bert used to sit in, and Clint Eastwood sit in before too. So I got to work with a lot of the kids that later became big superstars, you know, I'm very proud of him. Quentin Tarantino studied with me, but I told him, I said, Quentin, you can't act right. And now he gets on the air and gets interviewed and said that he took acting from me. He got a review once said he was the worst actor that ever hit Hollywood. Well, but he's a very successful man with a photographic mind, and he can put a combination of stuff that he's seen over the years into it's entertainment, I guess, to certain people. It's not my cup of tea. I mean, that much violence. God knows I've killed hundreds of people, and I've been killed hundreds of times. But you know, you put a little chocolate syrup on your shirt for the blood and fall off your horse. They know you're dead. You don't have to see your body parts fly off.
I think a lot of people would agree with you on that. Yeah.
We didn't have to use dirty words. You know, I never had to. I'm not a hypocrite. I did say a dirty word in a picture called Rolling Thunder with William Devane and Tommy Lee Jones when I played a terrible, terrible mean man out of Texas. And but you know, I turned the picture down 3 times, but I find they kept raising the money to the point that I hate to say it, I prostituted my honor for money.
Well, you know what, James? One thing that's very interesting to me, and I found this to be one of the, for me, the best stories in the book, and it was something you said in a story earlier on in this interview that made me think of that maybe it's a pattern through your career, and I think it might be a good pattern. You said you had a skirmish with Universal over some financials and other things. A lot of people will know they did Sheriff of the Week on Dukes of Hazzard because you had a bit of a skirmish with them over how you were being treated in the other actors. And one of the most, to me, personal moments in that book is when you went to your friend and certainly your counterpart in Dukes of Hazzard, Sorrel Book, Boss Hogg, and said, "Come with me." And he said no. You know, he said, this is the best, something to the effect, this is the best part, the most money I've ever made. That is a touching story, James.
Well, you know, Sorrel spoke 5 languages, and he was a character man. In fact, they saw him with Carol O'Connor when Carol O'Connor had the series. He played Carol O'Connor's, excuse me, Carol O'Connor's boss, and did a lot of character work. If you look up his bio on the internet, you'll see the man did a lot of work, and he was such a brilliant man, a charming man. I love the man dearly. And I said, "Sorrel, go with me." And he said, "Jimmy," he said, "I've wanted all my life to become a star, where people, you know, love me so much." And then he said, "I'm now accomplishing it, and I just can't afford to do it. I mean, I'm afraid." And I said, "That's okay, Sorrel. Listen, I love you." I said, I'll go it alone. And I did. And, you know, so.
What was the issue for people who don't know? You had started Dukes of Hazzard, and what happened?
Actually, it's a private thing. It was a simple thing. I warned them time and time again. Scott, we had our dressing rooms were made out of plywood with steel wheels, 6-inch steel wheels that was dragged up there every morning before we worked by a tractor. That was our dressing room. Everybody else in Hollywood, the would bees, can't bees, never will bees, had beautiful, beautiful dressing rooms, motor homes. Dukes of Hazzard was making millions and millions of dollars on the show. And all I wanted was to have a little comfort. I was 50 some odd years old, and I flying off of the hoods of cars and into the pools of water and all that stuff. And I said, it's very uncomfortable. It's very hard to be funny when you're very miserable. I want a dressing room. It doesn't have to be a great big motor home. And I said, and I wanted a dog on the show. I said, you didn't give me a girl. You know, I got one girl during the whole season, 7 years, and she was a crook. And I said, give me a dog. So they said, we don't want to pay $500 for a trainer on the dog. Oh my God, $500. You know, they made that every 8th of a second. you know. Anyway, so they didn't. I'll show you. They finally said, okay. They had 3 shows that they had not finished, and they were going to finish it that following Friday night. It was, you know, pickup shots from directors who didn't quite finish their assignment, and it was on a Friday. And they said, if you stay, you know, you'll have a dressing room. Well, Friday I had a dressing room, and the prop man came up and said, Mr. Best, how do you want it furnished? And I said, don't worry about it. It won't be here Monday. And come Monday, I went back in there. There's my old plywood dressing room with the broken mirrors. And I said, what's going on, to the producers? And he said, we can't afford to give. If we give you one, we have to give Kathy and John and Tom one, and Edith. I said, well, I warned you. I said, I told you I was going to leave if you didn't, you know, if it didn't make me comfortable. So I left. And they tried to replace me with 3 different actors, and a couple of those actors were good actors. It's just that they didn't ad-lib like I did. I ad-libbed all over the place. Well, they got so the writers would write in the script, Boss Hogg and Roscoe ad-lib. And we were doing their job. If it worked, they took credit for it. If it didn't, they said the SOBs are ad-libbing again. Well, it always worked. 99% of the time, I guarantee you, the people that we could tell from the fan letters and from the reception when we go on personal appearances. So I quit, and they tried to replace me, and my fans just said, no, we want Roscoe. So they asked me to come back. They said, what will it take to bring you back? And I said, give me a dog and give me a decent dressing room. And they said, okay. So I came back. And, you know, everything went along fine, smooth. John and Tom quit for different reasons. That's none of my business. And so I won't go into that. But and unfortunately, they lost, I don't know how many shows. And at that salary, that's a lot of money. And they came back, and just recently, I sued Warner Brothers, you know, for merchandising, and we settled.
And hopefully it was to your benefit.
I'm happy.
Good. Well, we're happy to hear that. You know, James, you touched on it there. Your relationship with Sorrel Book as Boss Hogg, truly, Abbott and Costello, a great comic duo. If you can watch those episodes, they hold up today very well. What was it about the two of you? Is that just chemistry? Did it just happen?
That happens not too frequently with actors. I mean, you do a movie or you do a television show, and you do the best you can, but you don't really have time to develop that wonderful, wonderful timing. Well, when you got a man to work against like Sorrel Book, who was so talented, and he could take any, he would stick to the script fairly close, and I would just bounce off of the wall, and he would go along with it. And, you know, when I got through acting a fool, then he'd go back to the regular dialogue. And I'd come in with these ridiculous things, and he'd go along. He was very brave. I'd get him on that electric horse where you sit on there with the pedals, and I'd turn it up full and throw him across the room. You know, he never complained. I said, Sorrel, one day I came in and I said, Sorrel, we have this scene together. It's pretty boring. I said, let me light your cigar and set your hat on fire. And he said, how are you going to do that? I said, I'm not sure. I said, so I got the prop man hit me some lighter fluid, and I soaked the front of his hat with lighter fluid. Well, the front office was screaming, and he said, you can't burn that to $250 Stetson hat. I said, it's funny, just don't jump the car. Use the stock footage of the car jumping again. Anyway, so the crew, they couldn't wait for this. They never knew what I was going to do, because I'd keep ad-libbing until I would say something naughty, and they'd have to cut the camera. Anyway, So we got into the scene, and they were rolling. We're rolling. Speed, action. And then he starts his dialogue, and I light his cigar. And I don't know what's going to do. I told him, I said, Sorrell, if it really gets to flaming up and starts to burn your little chrome dome, we'll just knock it off. He said, okay. I said, if it gets hot, that's good. Let's knock it off. Well, I lit the cigar, and I lit the brim of the hat, and there was just a little bitty baby blue flame. And I thought, man, this ain't gonna work. And all of a sudden, it started getting bigger and bigger and bigger. Pretty sure it looked like a brush fire on top of his head. And the cameraman fell off the boom with tears in his eyes. He said, I'm laughing so hard I can't see through the viewfinder. and they were laughing so hard it ruined the take. Oh. Because the soundman said, I can't have all that laughter going on in there. Nobody else is supposed to be in the office in the movie. So they said, we're going to do it again. Well, now the producers, they're having a coronary. They said another $250 ad. I said, it's funny. Look at the crew. I mean, these guys see the same garbage for the last 50 years, And I said, it takes a lot to make them laugh. And I said, look at them. They're all on the floor laughing with tears in their eyes. So we burned another hat. It didn't go as big as the first time. We turned I didn't put as much lighter fluid in there for fear of burning my little buddy. But those were fun things, But there was a lot of serious things that happened on Dukes. And there was a guy killed on the show, and there was a couple of guys crippled very badly. And they weren't stuntmen. The stuntmen, of course, were in the hospital in and out, but what they called minor things, the broken arm, they call it minor. I don't call it that, but a gentleman, we had the camera car turn over in a chase and crush the guy. Unfortunately, that was a terrible, tragic thing. But it was a very action picture. I mean, it's series. I did a lot of dangerous things on that show, and a lot of us got very close to getting hurt. All of us, except I don't think Daisy had anything serious happen to her, but nearly all the rest of us had very close to calls with different things.
James, what is it about that show that here we are, my goodness, nearly 40 years later, 30 years later, that show still holds up? It can get ratings and syndication. What is it?
Yeah, well, it's like the Andy Griffith Show. It was a time when your handshake was your honor. It had the grandfather figure. It had the best-looking men, John and Tom, good-looking guys. You've got Daisy Duke in a pair of shorts that stop your heart, stop a covey of crow in full flight. And you got a Laurel and Hardy comedy team with Boss Hogg and Roscoe. And you got Enos, who is in between. And it was cast very, very well. And it just happened to be a beautiful magic casting. Whoever did that was brilliant. And we thank them very much for that, because it was a beautiful, beautiful cast. We still love each other. We do personal appearances together, excuse me, all over the country. And the last time we were all together was about a month ago. We drew 30,000 people.
That's great.
We're going down to Nashville. I don't know the date exactly. I think it's next month. They'll probably have, in Nashville, it's fan day for the country western too. I'll bet you there'll be 80,000 people there.
It's wonderful. It's a wonderful legacy to have, that you are entertaining the kids of the kids of the kids that you had.
Yeah, it's so nice. They come up, man will come up with a little baby wearing an orange shirt with an O one on it, and go, go, and it's like third generation, because it's a clean show. It was a family show. And the people in the country are starved for something they can go and come out of without being embarrassed. You can't I can't let some of my grandchildren look at some of the commercials.
It's rough now.
It's unbelievable. I don't know when it's going to turn around. When's Hollywood going to realize that they're losing millions and millions of prospective theater goers because they're putting nothing things but remakes that we did 40 years ago, only we did it without any four-letter words, and we did it with actors instead of so-called reality stars.
What do you make of this reality television?
I thank God that they're not brain surgeons.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's
In the
about
old
right.
days, in the old days, you had to study and you had to train to be an actor. You know, in my acting class in Hollywood with Gary Busey and Lindsay Wagner and all them kids, I said, I'll give you 1 month, and then when we do a scene, I want you to go to tears within 45 seconds. If you can't, I'll throw you out.
How do you do that, James? How do you go to tears?
Well, it's a process that you have to learn it. I mean, you can do it. There are different ways for you would probably do it different than I would. It takes nothing for me to do it. All I'm saying is to my body, cry, and it does. I was doing a picture with Sammy Fuller where I'm talking about some of the men that have been killed in the war. And Sammy wrote the script, and he named them after those men that he lost. They were dear friends of his. And I was playing a part where I was mentioning those names. He said, I want you to go to tears. And I laughed at Sammy, and I said, where's the key? I know where the key light is. I said, which eye do you want the tear to fall down? He said, you crazy so-and-so, and just cry. Well, I looked up to see where the key light was, and when I got tears in my eyes, all I do is bend my head into the light like that. See how the light hits?
Yeah.
And I would drop the tear down, but I could squeeze that eye and make that, because the tears were there, all I have to do then to let them drop. But it takes training and a lot of concentration. And as I say, different people acquire the ability to do that. It depends on the thought process. Some people think of their dead cat or something horrific that has happened in their life or something very sad.
I think the study of acting is one of the most fascinating studies there possibly is. And I also think singers, because I don't understand why I can't sing and they can, and I don't understand why somebody can act and I can't. It's just beyond me.
You can act.
I'll have to get in the class, James. I'll look to it.
You're a businessman, even though you do what you do. You're a very successful businessman, and the very successful businessmen are the best actors. I guarantee you, the way you conduct your business every day, socially and everything, is entirely different than you act when you're at home.
The world's a stage.
Huh?
Kind of the world's a stage theory.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting.
But have you ever? That's why I told the Everly Brothers, my first cousin, I said, I don't understand why I can't sing. They said, well, we can't act. but I fooled them. I've done two or three movies that I sang in the westerns.
How'd you get by? Was it
cheating?
Well, you know something, James? I admire you for this reason, and it's an interesting reason. I think people will find once I say it here, but I truly do, and I think a lot of people do. You talked about the Dukes of Hazzard fan fests. You're a very accomplished actor. There's no doubt about it. The time with Universal, the series you've had. It's a great body of work. But when you go to these fan fests, you don't just go, you wear the Roscoe outfit.
That's right.
That's very, that's a moment for those people coming to see you. Most people, I can't think of another actor who does that, who would do that.
Well, Enos does it. I'll tell you, and Cletus does it, Rick Hurst. I'll tell you, to not do it, it cheats these young kids. They come to see Roscoe. They didn't come to see me, and you can't cheat children. That would not be nice.
Well, I even said when we got ready to do this interview, I said, what would be the chances of you doing it in the outfit with the top and the hat? It's just burn into people's minds, I think.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful thing. James, when it really is. When you went back to do the reunion movies in '97 and 2000, did you like those movies with Boss Hogg gone?
I said, I don't like the script. I don't like, I don't like it. And first of all, there's nobody could replace him. And it was very difficult because then I had to push for the humor. And Art wouldn't be there, And the only person I had was Rick Hurst. We got my wife called and they weren't going to have Rick in the movie. And I said, yes, you are. I've got to have somebody in there that's got the humor timing, and Rick does have it.
Well, the first movie, I thought it was kind of nice to see Denver Pyle get a last gas as Uncle Jesse, and it was nice to see everybody back. And I didn't think the premise of the first one was too bad because it did, at the end, Boss Hogg had trained Roscoe, and I thought that was nice. But the second one, I wasn't really sure what happened with that.
No, it was just for money.
Yeah.
And then, unfortunately, that after we went off the air, then they make the reruns with these different people, with Burt Reynolds and Johnny, whatever his name is, and the girl with the shorts trying to emulate Daisy Duke. I called the director before they got ready to shoot that. I said, "You're not going to use any of the regular cast, right?" He said, "No." I said, "Why not? It could be our sons, it could be our relatives, it could be, and we could do cameos in it, and it would work." He said, "No, we're not going to do that. I'm going to update it." Well, he updated it all right. He put the 4 words in there with some smoking pot and Uncle Jesse played by Willie Nelson. Now, I love Willie Nelson. I love his singing, his performance. But as an actor, he's done an Uncle Jesse. He's
Well, one of the unfortunate things, and it's nice to be talking about this, about those motion pictures, aside from the 4-letter words and things of that nature, they took 2 of the most beloved characters, Boss Hogg and Uncle Jesse, and they got good people, Willie Nelson and Burt Reynolds, but Boss Hogg wasn't fat and Uncle Jesse was irrelevant.
No. You see, it's very hard. It's like me trying to play John Kennedy or somebody, John F. Kennedy or something. I can act it, I don't look it, and I don't, And Burt, I've made a ton of movies with Burt, and I did Hooper and did the rewrites on 2 of these movies, produced 2 of these movies, Gator and The End, called The End. But Burt, I couldn't forgive. I couldn't forgive him. He must have needed money pretty bad to butcher that part. I haven't spoken to him since. Not that I haven't seen him. But we used to be in contact. Well, it's not anymore.
That's unfortunate.
It is. It really is. It's not that I'm holding a grudge or anything. I just wish he hadn't done it, and I don't think it was necessary. And as I say, he's just probably desperate for money on business ventures that have not worked out for him, perhaps, and his marriage, perhaps.
Yeah,
that could happen.
It happens.
Happened to me.
It definitely happens. I started to ask this question earlier on, James, and I didn't get to it because we got off and it was a great tangent, I'm sure. But with Universal, the falling out over some financial issues, Dukes of Hazzard over the rooming and how they were treating you, are you a bit of a rebel?
Am I what?
Are you a bit of a rebel when it comes to being an actor?
I was known as a rebel in L.A.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I sincerely believe this. When I went to L.A. under contract, the reason I was successful was not that I was any better than a lot of actors out there that did not have the opportunity that I did. I think I did it because I was honest. Hollywood wolves always are looking for fresh meat that is different. And they get tired of eating the zebra. They want a gazelle once in a while. So, okay, I came down the road, and here's that guy whose handshake was his honor, I didn't take any garbage off anybody. You know, and that spread very quickly. Well, you know, like Jimmy Dean, he was different. You know, he was a rebel. You know, and Rock Hudson couldn't act. He was put under contract 6 months after I was there, and he had never acted a day in his life, but he was so good looking, and they were ready to throw him out of the studio because he couldn't act. And Rock came to me with tears in his eyes, and he said, "I'm up for a part of the Indian with Jeff Chandler." And he said, "How do you play an Indian?" I said, "You don't." I said, you just put the war paint on and that feathers," and I said, "and just speak very distinctively. You don't go, me, one of them, buckle." And I said, "Don't do that." And he did it, and he did the part. And, you know, the fans loved him because he's a good-looking guy. But, you know, that's not... And so everybody thinks, you know, everything is autographs and sunglasses. It's not true. You know, you see the so-called reality stars. Those poor kids, they get their 15 minutes of fame, and you don't know who they are a month later. And yet, while they're doing their bit for so cheap, they throw their dirty feet up on an interviewer's desk and say, "I'm a megastar," and they can't even spell it.
Yeah,
very
true.
Now, that bothers me, you know? And it's because the industry has gone so cheap, and they do it as cheap as they possibly can. My daughter writes for Hallmark and for 20th Century Fox and these places. She had married Michael Damian, who was on Young and Restless for about 15 years, playing Danny Romanati. So the two of them are a wonderful team, and they're the hot shoes in Hollywood now. I mean, they've done 4 or 5 movies, and in fact, I just starred in a movie that they made in Romania last year for Hallmark, and with Catherine Morris, and it was the best movie that Hallmark had for the year.
It was a wonderful movie.
It was called Sweeter Side of Life.
Yes, very good movie.
And I had done 2 or 3 movies with my daughter, but they write family type films, and I'm going to Romania this November or December because they have to have snow. It's a Christmas movie. We're going to do another movie for Hallmark, and so I'm looking forward to that because it's a cute idea, a real cute idea. I won't give it away, but I'll let you know when it comes out, and you know about that. It's a publicity thing, and they're very, very suspicious of anybody stealing their idea and getting the script before they do.
Well, I understand that, and you know, it was interesting because I thought that movie, Sweeter Side of Life, and I did watch that. It was, I don't know if it was the timing of it because we're so bogged down with this reality nonsense, but there was no echo, certainly, of Roscoe in that, but it was just a wonderful movie, and you had such a wonderful part, and I thought, people are going to be beating down his door again to do things because he's still here and he's still great.
Well, I'm afraid I'm on the wrong side of the politics in Hollywood for that to happen, perhaps. I'm not sure. I think, you see, I think they look at the age. Everybody wondered if I was still alive. You know, I get that on the internet. Is Jim Best still alive? You know, it cracked me up. I said, sure. Either that or my embalmer did a good job. But
he did a good job. Yeah, he certainly did.
Well, you know, I'm not through yet. I've got 3 Lifetime Achievement Awards. And I said, why are you doing this? I'm still alive. I'm not finished yet.
Well,
I've got a script that I want to, I'm trying to raise the money to shoot it. It's going to be the best thing that I ever did. I did it as a play, and I toured it all of the United States to test it. And we had a good cast. It got standing ovations every time we performed it. So I've written it into a screenplay. And, it's the best thing I have written, you know. And I'm very proud of it. And I wrote the part for myself, you know, which would, as I say, it will be the best thing that I've ever done. And did you see Amour?
Yes.
Well, you know, I wanted to turn it off for the first 5 minutes, And then I didn't. I got caught up in it, and I was so proud that these two elderly people are fine actors that could sustain a movie and get the acclaim that they got. It might not be a commercial movie for the average moviegoer, but it was so brilliantly acted and beautifully directed with the limitations that they had, and they must have shot it for 20 cents.
Well, and you know, it's interesting because those things are what people really crave. I saw a movie this past weekend, and I know it's been a box office success, but 42, the Jackie Robinson movie, couldn't have cost a whole lot. Oh, it's wonderful, wonderful film.
Yeah, you know, and I have not seen it, but I've heard nothing but raves about it, and you wonder. It touches subject matter that a lot of people are still nervous about. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I just hope that it is as commercial success as it deserves.
Well, the thing that I loved about it was I looked at it and there's no real I mean, they do use the N word because of the time it was in, but no other profanity, no nudity, no anything, and nothing blowing up or special effects. It's a great film.
Well, you know, the special effects, they rely so much on special effects, more and more so now. I studied karate for about 3.5 years, and I studied Kung Fu from Professor Liu, who was an Oriental gentleman that was 15 years in a Chinese monastery. And I took private lessons with him. And I watched these movies. When I was first studying, it was new in the business back in those days, long, you know, you're talking 50, 60 years ago. And I'd go to the studio and I said, why don't you use karate? And they said, what is it, an Oriental disease? I said, no, it's, you know, martial art. They didn't know what it was. Of course, later on, that's all they used. But I was always too soon, you know, and they're going to listen to some half-assed actor, you know. Well, they're not going to do that.
They should.
Not those days.
They should more often, I think. But you know, Jay, and it seems like we could go on forever here. But you have so many great things. You write, you paint. Your artwork is wonderful. Go to the internet and see it if you haven't seen it. It's beautiful artwork. The book is out there. You're still working strong. Do you ever get tired? A one-person show you do from place to place, personal appearances?
No, actually, it keeps me alive.
Good. Good.
It really does. I really look forward to my one-man shows because it's a personal thing with the audience. I just have a ball because I get to act a fool, and the laughter is like taking a tonic. And you know, I got about 4 or 5 books coming up, 4 or 5 different things. In fact, I'm going back to my hometown in Corydon, Indiana, where I was raised, and do my one-man show. I did it once there, and it was received very well. So I'm going to go back and see a lot of my old friends, and you know, and visit some of my old friends.
Why, that's not too far from Ohio. I'd love to come over and see that.
Yeah, I wish you would.
I would love to do that.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah, when we
I really appreciate you for interviewing me on this, and I hope I didn't disappoint you.
No, can I ask you one final question, though?
Sure.
Because this has been such an honest interview. I mean, truly, you don't usually get this honesty out of everybody, and it's really refreshing. When you look back at your career, for everything you've done, the artwork, the one-man shows, the stage productions, going to be doing on Golden Pond, the book, working with these great actors, the westerns you did, does it ever bother you that first and foremost you're always going to be remembered as Roscoe?
It's a two-edged sword. I'm very, very pleased to go to Rome and Paris and all these different countries, and them coming up, and children coming up and hugging my neck, and older people, and even the Italian men come up and say, "Roscoe, let me kiss you," and they kiss you on both cheeks. You know, at first I said, "Whoa, whoa, whoa," I'm used to that, but they are very affectionate and very truthful about it.
There she is.
I'm very proud of having been a part of a show that it's like the Andy Griffith Show, you know, it'll go on forever. because it is of a better time, and I'm not too sure that we'll ever go back to that. And it's unfortunate for those who have not experienced it, and it's wonderful memories for those who did. And I just happen to be one that did.
How would you like to be remembered? Parting question.
I want to have it on my tombstone, "This too shall pass."
I like it. I like it. You know, that is one of my... I like that. That's what... one time I asked somebody that, I think it was Dick Cavett, and he said, you know what's on Rodney Dangerfield's tombstone? And I said, no, I don't. And he said, well, he's in this real posh cemetery in Bel Air, and on the tombstone it says, "There goes the neighborhood."
I heard that, yes.
I thought, I love that. That's great. Well, I tell you, Mr. Best, it truly has been a pleasure. I'm so glad we got the chance to hook up.
Thank you, Mr. Spears, since you will keep calling me Mr. Best.
I know it's hard for me. It's hard for me. Watching you all these years, I have to be formal about it.
You know, it's the same thing I did with Jimmy Stewart. And I did 5 movies with him, and he said, why do you always call me Mr. Stewart? I said, because you are a Mr. Stewart. It was respect. And he said, well, you don't have to do that. And I said, oh, no, I don't want to do it. But God let him, it was a sign of respect. And I always called him Mr. Best if there was anybody else around. But in private, when we would have dinner or something together, it was Jimmy or James, and it was nice.
Well, it truly has been a pleasure, and I hope you do come back again.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yep.
And as old Roscoe P. Coltrane would say, keep your gown down in the pedal of the metal. I'm gone. I'm not kidding. It's hot pursuit.
Hope you've enjoyed this interview with James Best, great actor, famous for his work on The Dukes of Hazzard as Roscoe P. Coltrane. I'm sure after listening to this interview, you learned a lot of his thoughts, his persona, his idea of being a rebel in Hollywood. And remember, there's so much more to this man. You have to check out his book, The Best in Hollywood, The Good, the Bad, and the Beautiful. You can get this book autographed from jamesbest.com. You'll want to check it out. He's a true original. James Best. There's only one. Until next time, this is Scott Spears, headed for the dugout.